So this is officially day 2 of Wellness Week. This week we're talking about all things Epic 5 diet related, but as always, almost always when we do these, we end up digging into some deep-rooted psychology, and today will be no exception. Yesterday, if you didn't have a chance to take a look at it yet, Coach Natalie led a very good discussion on the big why. The big why, not only what is our, why did we develop the Epic 5 plan? Why do we have the Epic 5 diet? Did we need another diet? Where did that come from? But then also, what's our big why? What's our big motivating factors for us to choose a healthy lifestyle, to choose a healthy diet, and just to basically choose health? And so there's a lot of great material there. Certainly catch it in the feed here, in the news feed on Facebook. I think that it's still, the replay for live streaming is there. And then we also loaded that up to our YouTube channel, and I think that it's already up and running. Natalie could not join us today, but the good news is we already had Coach Dan scheduled to be on here today. Natalie was going to try to catch it with us, but she just couldn't be here. But Dan and I are going to be discussing, amongst other things, something called the Wheel of Belief. And Dan, you're muted again.
I unmuted myself.
Oh, okay, perfect. I was just going to pitch it right over to you, and tell us why we're here today. What are we doing?
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, Dr. Bradley, this week is kind of a detox challenge, and it might seem odd that, we're on our second day into just 5 days. So, at the end of today, it'll be 40% the way through the week. And, we've been, like you said, talking a little more about the psychology of things, but that's so true. When we look at like a lot of times we can see like the idea of a detox as maybe something good for us, but there's a lot of stigma behind that in our culture. And I think one of the big ones is we just think it's hard, or like, and if something's hard and we've tried it before, maybe I can't do it. And it just comes back to when we realize, a number of authors out there, people who are really wise when it comes to helping others with your relationship with food, let alone the nuts and bolts, like we talk about Epic, of how, like, what food should we eat, what does bring good health and vitality. And it comes back to, most of the connecting piece is up here in the mind. And specifically, with this wheel of belief, this was a concept, just to kind of intro all of us into this. The wheel of belief is a concept that we've noticed is the same theme or a very similar theme in a number of other books we've read. A couple of examples we love talking about, at least I do, is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Another book is called Turning Off the Tap by Sarah Bess. Those are just two books that, like you and I have read Atomic Habits. We never stopped talking about it. Turning Off the Tap I read recently, and I was just fascinated that both these authors and more, I'm sure, talk about this this concept of what we'll be talking about, the wheel of belief. And it's kind of funny because, Dr. Bradley, you and I are talking about it, and you're like, I think it's this, and you drew a diagram, and then you found a PDF or a photo online. It's like the wheel of belief that somebody else talked about, and they put it in their own words. And so clearly we're on, not we as an Epic, but just humanity is onto something when a lot of intelligent, experienced people in their own experiences are like, this is what helps us get through the limiting beliefs, the thought patterns, the mental hiccups, to lifestyle changes, behavior changes. And that it's important to discuss when they're all saying essentially the same thing, even though they've probably not spoken to each other.
It's the same thing. I'm always fascinated, coming from, my undergraduate, I had many different majors in my undergraduate. I had a very liberal arts education, for sure. One of my majors was comparative religion, and I always fascinated by, like you said, spaces, separated from, geographics and cultures. But then when you look at, deeply in their religions, there's so many common themes, just different words in different languages, but very common themes. One of them, of course, be good to other people. Let me just draw up this wheel of belief real fast.
Yeah, as you do so.
Sure.
I was just going to mention the reason that thinking about belief, or another word that some authors use, is identity. So what we believe about ourselves. So let's kind of thread together. It's so important because, and I'll paraphrase a quote, maybe Dr. Bradley, you know who this quote's from because
Sure.
your brain's just good at that. But somebody said, one time, it's like, if you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right.
You're right.
Yeah.
I don't know who said that, but it's a good one.
It
I believe.
yeah. And that's the thing, is what we believe about the world around us and what we believe about ourselves, or about concepts, is we're going to conscientiously or not conscientiously, subconsciously live out our lives to make that reality. So if you don't believe that you can, make dietary lifestyle changes, yeah, you're probably right, and it's going to play out that way. As long as it's things that are in your realm of control, then you essentially shape it. Now, certainly I can believe whatever I want about how gravity works, but gravity is out of my control. Gravity just is. So there are some things that kind of go outside of that. But for a lot,
Right.
there's quite a bit in our control. So
I agree. I'm going to stop trying to be a perfectionist. Like my hand, first of all, I'm writing with my finger. I don't know if you guys can see me or not, but I'm
oh,
writing with my finger, which is always fun. I couldn't find a stylus, but here's the wheel of beliefs, right? It's
yep.
basically beliefs dictate our thoughts, which dictates our feelings, dictates our actions, dictates results, and then reinforces our beliefs, right?
hmm
So it's a cycle, so to speak. And what I really wanted to touch on, and what really where just so Dan, do you want to? I mean, before we jump into this, what I was going to say next is just should we give a little context on why we even started talking about this?
Yeah, yeah. So we as in Dr. Bradley, Natalie, and I, a couple weeks ago, we were kind of talking through, what are some of the things, yeah, just kind of brainstorming together, just having a discussion about what helps people, making lifestyle changes. We even were maybe even talking about like hydration among other things. And there was Dr. Bradley, you had kind of summed up some of our discussion of thinking the importance of uh, awareness, mindfulness, and then execution, was it, or action?
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
awareness, mindfulness, and execution. And we need to be aware of what's going on, then mindful, and that helps us to then move forward to take action. And so we were having some discussion on, well, like I thought, isn't awareness and mindfulness sort of the same thing? So we started talking about that a bit more. And then we realized there are some nuances, because awareness could be like an intellectual understanding or awareness. Like, hey, I know that's a thing. Mindfulness can often be awareness in the present moment. So we can be aware of something or know something, but then forget about it in the moment, and so we don't act in accordance to that knowledge and awareness. So we were talking about that, and then what led to the wheel belief is we were wondering the question, okay, what is the missing piece? What is the bridge between that mindfulness and action? Um, or yeah, what is that bridge between being mindful of something like, oh, I'm mindful right now that I'm not drinking water and I'm supposed to be drinking, X amount of water a day, right? What is the bridge? And so then, I kind of jumped in saying, it seems like it's one thing to know something, it's another thing to believe it's true, right?
Yeah.
And that was what then led to kind of more of this discussion, bringing us to this wheel of belief. I think it's a pretty good summary. Is there anything else you'd
I
add to
think it's
that,
a
Dr.
really good
Bradley?
summary. I think that it's interesting that that I think that we from our end, just so that everybody knows this, the longer that we do this as a team, the more that we realize that we're really deep in psychology and philosophy, and I think that that's just something for us to be aware of. But I wanted to run through this again. I changed some of the words on here, and I added mindfulness on here as well, Dan.
hmm
But our beliefs dictate our thoughts, dictates our feelings, our actions, our results, and again reinforces our beliefs. Another way to say that is, I am what I believe, basically, for the most part. There's certain things I know. Those things that I know they cause me to have feelings about certain things or another. Then I take actions or I do things, and then I get results, right? Which then again reinforces the beliefs. The thing that I wanted to point out here, and I think that this is one area, and Dan, you already know the answer. And so if I had a little bit more interaction, I'd have this as like a group discussion. So I'm going to just ask a question, give a couple seconds, and then we'll answer it. And Dan, I'm going to let you answer, but pause for just a minute because I know that you already know this. When people want a result, right? Oops, hold on. I'm trying to circle this. When people want a result, where do people generally intervene?
Mhm.
Did that question make sense? Did I say it the right way?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So when people want the result, so they want something, they want to get something. Maybe they want to lose weight, right? Maybe they want to make more money. Maybe they want a better relationship. Maybe they don't want to be diabetic anymore. I mean, maybe they want their thyroid fixed, or their autoimmunity to go away. So here's the question. Where do most, and Dan, you go ahead and answer now. Where do most people, I mean, myself included, until I've now understood this wheel of belief, where do most people intervene? Go ahead. Go ahead if you want to take a stab at it. Am I still online? Oh, let me just a second. How do I do that? Hmm, There we are.
Sorry
Try that.
about that. I muted myself for a moment so I could cough, and I didn't realize that the moment I do that, I lock myself out. So
Gotcha.
I'm just
I
not going to
got you.
touch the mute button anymore.
No more coughing. Yeah. So
No
that
more.
was a
Yeah,
lot.
no more coughing.
The people are really thinking about this now. It was
I
a
know,
really
right?
dramatic moment. Here's the funny part too, is that I couldn't quite see, what was going on because I have lots of screens in front of me and none of them were helpful
That's
with
okay.
that. So the question
All
again,
right.
is people want to get a result. Where do most people intervene?
Yeah, most people intervene at the actions part.
Right?
Yep.
Exactly. So, which makes sense, right? Because I can do something. I want to put this pen that's in my left hand into my right hand. I just take an action, I do it, and I get the result, right? This is the way we're conditioned to think. If you want to make more money, you should just work harder, go out and get a better job, like go take an action, right? If you want to lose weight, you should eat less calories and exercise more. Take an action, get a result. Am I talking the right way?
Hmm.
Here's the question though. Let's just keep working backwards. What dictates our actions, right? What
Right.
really truly, if you get, especially, if I'm not in marketing, Dan's not in marketing, but we certainly have interacted with a lot of marketing folks, either as clients or even as we've been clients of marketers. Um, as far as that goes, most people take action actually based on their feelings, right? So it
Right.
really is feelings that are really, really, really driving actions. Guys, that's why when you're watching TV and they want to sell you a drug, right? We see all these drug commercials. I think it's something like 60% of the commercials on TV are drug commercials. I don't know if that stat is perfectly accurate, but I think I'm pretty close to that. Um, they're they're not really talking to you about the drug and the effect that the drug has on your body. They're really selling you a feeling. That's why, the people that are taking the medications are smiling. They're nice looking, they're dressed nicely. The sun is out. I mean, there's families involved. They're evoking a feeling. In marketing, it's called neuro-linguistic programming. But nonetheless, they're evoking a feeling to get you to take action. In those drug commercials, the action is go buy this drug at the pharmacy or talk to your doctor to see if fill in the blank drug is right for you. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yeah.
Right. Right. So our feelings obviously don't just come out of thin air, right? So really what we're doing is drawing from our thoughts. And again, it's our thoughts that are dictating those feelings. We think things, therefore we feel things. Feelings just don't happen without some, even if it's subconscious thought. And again, I'll try to stay away from marketing, but it works so well. Again, they're counting on that we have a certain thought pattern to evoke that feeling. I mean, who doesn't want to be in perfect weather with, a beautiful partner and a beautiful family that's smiling and happy. I mean, if someone said, "Hey, tell me what a happy family looks like, or what a happy moment with your family looks like," that's what people are going to describe. And again, what dictates our thoughts are our beliefs. So again, this is where it gets really interesting. But here's a question. What if our beliefs are incorrect? What if our beliefs are false? What if I'll give you an example of something that we can, think through. We'll go to like an absurd pathology. What if someone has body dysmorphia? They think that they're overweight. They're not overweight at all, but they believe that they're overweight
Right.
because of a pathology. That's going to dictate, if they believe that they are, so I am, right? That person is overweight in their belief. That means their thoughts are about being overweight. That means they feel overweight, and they're going to take action to do what? To
To
lose
lose
weight.
weight.
To lose weight, right? And what result do they get? They wind up with anorexia. I mean, and again, I'm trying to use something that we can relate to. Um, you know, a false belief can dictate results that are not necessarily constructive to life, right? And then because they have body dysmorphia, no matter how much weight they lose, it still feeds into the fact that they believe that they're still overweight, and they keep taking that action to the point of that pathological uh, response. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. Uh, so given this, if we don't have the right belief system, guys, I'm keeping an eye on my time just because I have to jump off um, a little early today. Interestingly, just for full disclosure, I'm interviewing Dr. Jason Richardson, who wrote a book called "It's All BS," and the BS stands for belief systems, which I think is ironic. Rachel, my far better half, said that's interesting that you and Dan are talking about the wheel of belief, and then you're jumping over to one of the experts on belief systems, on the planet. And I'm going to be interviewing him a little bit later today. But nonetheless, did that make sense? That pathological, broken belief system getting results that are not constructive?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
And
when we go ahead, Dan, please.
actually, no, you go first, because what I was going to say might have maybe gone to a new topic.
Well, what I was going to say is ultimately, I'm trying to get rid of these reds. Um, ultimately, one of the things that we have to do to end that negative belief, or I'm sorry, to end that pathological response is very simply to change the belief pattern, right? So that's why that pathologically anorexic or body dysmorphic patient, they go to counseling. Does that make sense? Because counseling works on changing the belief system. Did that make sense?
Hmm.
Yeah. So again, if we only focus on the action, we may get some results, but the results usually reinforce our own belief system. Really, if we want change, is where I was going with this. We really need to be focusing on, the belief system, right? And ultimately, that's really where our focus needs to be, is way up at the top on that belief system. Dan, I'll turn it over to you. Maybe.
Oh my gosh, it's a habit. It is so a habit. I did it again. All right. Um, yeah, no, it's really true. And I wanted to, in kind of continuing this conversation of what you've been sharing so far, and I love this diagram. It's been fun to have you kind of using this tool for visual. Is reverse. For a lot of us, we need to actually. Before I get to that thought, I was just going to say you're right that if we have a deconstructive belief system,
Yeah,
then those results are going to it's going to create some really bad consequences, right?
sure.
Or the other thing that can happen is the person takes appropriate action for a constructive result, but because they don't have a solid foundation with their beliefs, which then affects their thoughts and feelings, they are their body, they're at war with themselves. And I think this is where, for a lot of people, when they say, I just don't have enough willpower to do this, really they're identifying what something that's true is. I need willpower. My willpower is being drained because it is exhausting to do actions that aren't in alignment with what I believe in the first place. And a lot of people don't realize that's what's happening, but they're at least just aware that it's fatiguing and draining their mental power or their willpower, so to speak. So, and then therefore the actions, that's why, going back to a detox, people like, I can do a 3-week thing or a 1-week thing, but I can't keep it going, or I can't learn from that experience to make a lasting change, because they can only sustain it for so long before that willpower drains and they snap back to who they believe themselves to be.
Right.
Yeah. Does that make
Right.
sense how I described it?
Totally. Totally. It does. I'm going
Yeah.
to, what happens here if I try to, I'm going to delete this whole thing. I'm going to clear my drawing. Perfect.
Go
So
for
I think what you're talking about, this is, my dogs are going to say hello here.
it.
But what I'm talking about is being, well, let me get rid of that. I'm still learning this whiteboard, guys. Not being in alignment, right? And I think you even use those words. I'm not positive that you did, but that's the words I would use, is not being in alignment. So our actions are not in alignment with our beliefs. And when that happens, like you said, it's burnout. We're trying to take action on something that we don't believe. So again, I like that idea of like, I don't have any willpower. I mean, you and I hear that all the time. I'm going to actually stop this share and come back to the screen. Perfect. And let me move this over here. Perfect. You and I hear this all of the time. I just can't. People say these things out loud. I'm not quoting myself on this because I don't want this belief system. I just can't do it. Whether it's I seem to be able to stick to something for a couple of days, but I can't stick to a diet for more than 3 days. That's a belief system. That's an I am statement, right? I am unable to do this. I'm unable to diet, or I don't like the word diet either, but to stick to a strategic eating style
Yep.
for more than 3 days. But then I always ask this, and this is a new technique that I've learned to ask myself when I start to hear that these negative beliefs. I call them negative beliefs, not because they're doing something negative, but maybe they're just not a constructive, belief system. It's a destructive belief system. When I start to hear myself saying that, I ask a question right away. What if the opposite is true? What would happen if the opposite was true? And then I go through, kind of a mind game where I will say, well, if the opposite was true, I do have the willpower to stick to a strategic eating style for as long as I want, you know? And then I start to look at, okay, well, what do I need to reinforce that belief? So really what I'm doing is I'm hopping back and forth between my my thoughts and my beliefs, if that makes any sense. I'm really
Yep.
pushing myself in the thought category. So I'm intervening at the top, right? I'm going to share a different screen here real fast. That's a little prettier than mine. So can you guys see that okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So again, what if instead of intervening at the action state, we start questioning our beliefs? I am unable to stick to a strategic eating style for more than 3 days. But what if I am? So then I start pushing my thoughts. I'm intervening in this area here. Well, of course, what would the next question would be if I'm able, if I am able, which I am able to stick to this, how would I feel about that? Right. Well, I'd feel a whole lot happier about that. Right. Okay. So what actions would I take? Well, of course, you can walk through this now. I would stick to that eating strategy for longer than 3 days. And what results would I get? Well, I'd get better results than bailing it, right? So when I stick to it longer than 3 days and I get results that are better than 3 days, it reinforces a new belief that I can do it. So one strategy that person could say as well, maybe the action I'm going to take is to stick to it for 4 days. I mean, as an example, I'm going to stick to it for 4 days and then I'm going to return to it, in a week and think about it again. And, so a week later, you're like, well, now I know I'm able to stick to this for 4 days. I thought it was 3, but I now know it's 4, right? So I have this new thought, this new knowledge that's dictating my feelings. I feel pretty good about it. So the action that I take then, maybe I stick to it for 5 days this round. And you know what? A lot of times at this point, we've already broken the old wheel, right? We really have reinvented the wheel, because that 5 days all of a sudden becomes 7 days, 8 days. And then, the belief system was, man, I thought that I could only stick to it for 4 days. I could do that once, and then I was going to try 5, but I stuck to it for 8 days, and I'm feeling, I know I can do that now. I know that. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I'm feeling a little bit more momentum. I know I can stick to it for 8 days. Why don't I try 10 and just see what happens? Right. And you can see the way we start pushing ourselves, where instead of saying, I'm going to change my diet forever. Well, I can't do that because I can only do this for 3 days at a time. Speaking of, here's
Exactly.
my belief system. I can't sit for very long. I can only sit for about 15 minutes.
Here you
Uh,
go.
then I have to stand up. I'm too fidgety. But nonetheless, I don't know if you want to chat about that. How do you
Yeah.
see this playing out with your coaching?
Yeah. Well, first I wanted to, before I kind of share how I see this playing out in the coaching, I just wanted to share, Melissa just put in the chat to go along with what you're saying, Dr. Bradley. So the coolest thing I've ever done is stopped and asked myself why I think the way I do. And then even deeper, where did my beliefs come from? And then decide, so the action, not like the action as in the wheel action, but one of the things she'll do is to choose her beliefs and thoughts as she creates this best life moving forward. And I think it's interesting. What Melissa, what you shared. There's two things I think are great takeaways from that. One is, yeah, we actually do have control to shape our beliefs. Certainly, our beliefs can be reinforced by how we grew up and other influences, but it can be changed. It's not fixed in place. So I think it's really a very empowering thing. And I think maybe a lot of people don't even realize that. And so realizing that can be the case, that they can change who they believe themselves to be and what's true and all those things, can be powerful. And the other thing is just kind of peeling layers back from an onion. I don't know why I think an onion, but maybe it's because of the movie Shrek. But you wrote, I think a really effective tool is that mindfulness of, like, if somebody, is listening to this, what you said, Melissa, what you said, Dr. Bradley, and is like, gosh, where do I start? There's a lot of pieces to this wheel. Just to remind folks what you shared, Dr. Bradley and Melissa, of kind of reverse engineering this. Start with feelings. What are you feeling? Like, when you did that action that maybe you weren't thrilled about, like you're trying to do the detox thing, right? But instead you stress ate, and then you take and mindfulness is realizing, okay, that just happened, and going, what am I feeling right now that led to that action? And then and for some people, they're very aware of their feelings but haven't taken it a step further. For some of us, we have to pause and take time to, like, process what words we had actually put to those feelings. For some of us, it's harder than others. Sometimes, sometimes guys can have a harder time with that, in general, than some women, right? But either way, both men and women, what are your feelings and how can you actually put words to it? And then kind of, Melissa, when you're saying, going deeper, peel back another layer. Okay, why do I, what am I thinking about right now that's having me feel this way? Like, what am I thinking about that's having me feel anxious or sad, happy, nervous? And then you realize, oh, here is what I'm thinking. And then, like you said, Dr. Brad, I think once we hit the thoughts place and get really good mindfulness there, then it's a shorter step to then really dive into the beliefs and to really start constructing a better one there. So just kind of wanted to share that. And Melissa, thanks again for sharing what you did here. Yeah, going backwards, and I think and again, if that, even how I explained it sounds like a lot for some people, just ask yourself why over and over. I feel this way. Why? Well, because of this. Well, why? Because of this. Well, why? Like a little kid who's trying to, be obnoxious and with their parents, right? Being snobby, but in a more constructive way.
Right.
So,
I think that's just like you said, heading backwards,
mhm,
why do I think just that question in and of itself, why do I feel this way, is a
mhm,
question that a lot of us don't the pause, I think, is the
yeah,
right word here. Just the pause to slow down and consider, and Melissa actually talked about this yesterday on yesterday's call. Just taking that moment to slow down and to pause and be still and just ask that question. Why do I feel this way? What am I thinking? Like what is my thought process? And then really the next question again, like you said, is why do I think that? What's my belief system around this? And then the question that I would say is, taking that, one step further is that belief real? I mean, that's a hard question to ask, right? Like you said, gravity's an easy one. I mean, things fall. I mean, we can test that, but a lot of our belief systems are untestable, at least in the way that we test physics. But I think that if we can get in there and say, what if my belief that dictates these thoughts and dictates these feelings and is driving my actions and getting these results that I'm tired, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, what's my belief system there? I'll give you another belief system that we're working on at Epic. I can tell you very clearly that this is my humble opinion as a doctor, that the doctor role is way overweighted in society as when it comes to true healing and true health. Um, I think that, at Epic, what we found, is that the one-on-one doctor visit does not serve people as well as the group encounters and working with health coaches. And then the doctor kind of helping to oversee it and organize it a little bit. But there's a belief system that I have to see the doctor and I have to see the doctor one-on-one. And we need all these little, private consultations, and I need to make an appointment for, X number of weeks down the road. And I keep thinking, is how did we get that belief system? I mean, I can tell you how we got the belief system because we were told that that's the way things work. When the reality is, when we look at our outcomes at Epic, they are conservatively 30, 60, I would say 5 to 6 times at minimum better than the best outcomes in general medicine across the board. I'm using statistical data there and numbers there, so objective data. All of that said, we do so by keeping an open portal system. We don't really schedule appointments. We just have an open portal system. If you have a question, ask the question. Anybody on the team can answer the question. If you have a question that we think is a good group question, you can jump into any group. We have 1,000 groups available a week, it seems like. You might have a good question, but Jimmy and Johnny and Sally and Samantha might have even better questions that you wouldn't have even thought to ask. So we couldn't have even given you an answer because you didn't ask it personally, but in that group encounter, you're able to learn a whole lot more. And what we found is that is the quickest way from point A to point B. If you don't want to be sick and tired anymore, this is the quickest way to not be sick and tired. Keep an open portal system, with your healthcare providing team, not the doctor specifically, although the doctor's part of that team. And the doctor's going to be the one looking at the labs and giving some direction there, some medical direction. But as far as the day-to-day progress, really it's going to be a medical assistant, a health coach, a life coach, maybe a nurse. But those people that are part of the team are really going to be doing the heavy lifting. And that's where we see the most progress. But again, it's a belief system. Why is America so sick and tired, and on all these drugs? Because that's what we do. The actions that Americans keep taking is to buy more drugs, thinking that somehow the results are going to be better health. But the reality is, no one wins the health prize by being on 1,000 medications. I don't know if that made any sense, but did I get
yeah.
myself into a loop there? Yeah. So I'd like to hear, we have a few minutes left. And again, I'm just being hyper conscious of the time today. I would love to hear, Dan, how this incorporates into like a coaching strategy.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks for helping me bring back to the question after I kind of shared some things and then you built off of it. So with coaching, as I've been growing, as a coach, and I'm becoming more convinced that the crucialness of meditation and mindfulness. Um, and I think for me, it's in the coaching role, there's, to keep my eyes peeled for, does this person have any time, even it's time that's scheduled, right? If needed, scheduled time where they can even process and reflect at all. And some, even though in the like an Epic for our private clients, we create structure of, let's start with hydration. That helps us then build our diet. Now we've got some key elements in place, we can start looking at rebuilding the body with movement, so on and so forth. And then we talk about stress right after we've laid those foundations. Sometimes I'll keep my eyes peeled and go, that if that stress piece is like really, really ramped up and high and the person's really busy and life's just go, 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 I'm going to need to be more mindful to be like, well, yeah, pun not intended, but more mindful to go, hey, while we're working on hydration, right? Like, where do you have time, or where could you give yourself 5 minutes to breathe and just think and reflect? Because if that's not happening, we're just on autopilot, and we'll just keep rubber banding back to how we always do things instead of being able to make lasting changes. So I think I don't have like a specific coaching strategy, except that I'm just more and more convinced that mindfulness and or meditation, but mindfulness for sure, is not optional for really any of us when it comes to lasting growth.
I fully agree with that. And I think that I really got to bring him up again, but I really like James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, because I love this idea of habit stacking.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I do this I was doing this before I read his book. I just didn't have a word for it, where I know that there are certain strategies that help us, be healthy, but I forget things, I mean,
Right.
one thing to know something, it's another thing to be mindful of it enough to take action, to implement it in your life. And then it's another thing to have that be a habit, right?
Mm-hmm.
As an example, coming back to hydration, how important is hydration to me? I mean, you guys know that I start all of our clients on drinking more water. We do an assessment of their dehydration right out of the gate, and most people are dehydrated. And yet, for me, I still have to set my watch with timers multiple times throughout the day so that I'm reminded to hydrate. I habit stack where I'll take, do one thing, which reminds me, then helps me be mindful of doing another thing. uh, really, really silly things there. But I think that James Clear book keeps coming up, and I do highly recommend it. And maybe I should work on a book code for a download or something like that for all of us, because it's a
Yeah.
really, I think it's almost a must read. And then you said turning
Turning
off the
off the tap
turning
by
off the
Sarah
tap.
Best. Yeah, the title came from, she gives a word picture of, there's this person, the water, they turn the tap on to fill a tub with water to take a bath. But then before we know it, the water's overflowing, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's everywhere. And you're like, get more towels. We need more people. We got to stop
Right,
it. And it's like, no.
right,
You need to turn the tap off, go back to the
right.
source. And so that's where
And
the
I'll
title
take
came
that a
from.
little bit further even too. Sometimes we fill up that bath and it seems like it's a pretty good bath, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. But then over time, what happens to a bath, right? It gets cooler, unless we're in a hot tub, right? With a heating
Right.
element, right? But the water gets cooler for the
Yeah.
most part. And it's not quite as comfortable as we once thought it was. And, like you said, we have two options. Try to turn on the guzzle again, right? Or the other thing that we can do sometimes is let some of that water out and allow for space. And I would say that water might be a belief system, right?
Mhm.
Let some of that water out and allow for space for a new belief system or for new water to come in. But again, remembering to turn off that tap and reassessing, and I think that's what we do very well at Epic. And I know I don't want to give away, Natalie, I think it's tomorrow, it might be the next day. We're talking about smarter goals. We always talk about smart goals, but we're talking about smarter goals. Evaluate and uh, not reconsider, but basically evaluate and evaluate, did we get the results that we want, and reconsider, do we want to take that action again? And I think that that's the space that we need to give, and the space and the grace that we need to give ourselves, is that we're all probably doing the best with the tools and resources that we have. But at the same time, we need to step back and say, you know what, maybe the tools and resources that I'm using are not the most constructive, and maybe there's a different way to do this. And then we're opening up that can of worms of belief systems again.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I wanted to share one thought before, in the next few minutes we start to wrap up. Just another tip or suggestion, not my own, but from when I was reading that book, Turning Off the Tap by Sarah Best. Earlier, Dr. Bradley, you mentioned, so we just need to work on, changing our beliefs. And, for some of us who are like, you can do that. And then you think, well, how, like you just say, oh, just change your belief. But like, that's not a small thing. So what is something practical that helps us to start, working on our beliefs, our identity, what we believe about ourselves, what's true and all that. And one of the suggestions she gave was that whenever we're working on reconstructing our beliefs, we need to make sure we don't stretch reality beyond what is within that our brain can comprehend. For example, if a person's starting out with, I am somebody who can't lose weight, let's say, that's a pretty strong belief right there, kind of like a absolute, right? And so it's not going to make like a person can't just be like, oh, you know what? I believe that I have full control and the weight will just fall off, because subconsciously, or in this case very consciously, we know that's just not realistic. Like that's a dream and it's fiction. But what if you take that belief adjustment a smaller notch to something that you can grab onto and go, I could agree with that. So instead of, if you're somebody who's like, I am somebody who just, I'm weight loss resistant, my body just, I can't lose weight. To instead think, I am somebody who is striving to find a solution. Maybe that they could believe is true, and it's not fully there, but it's a step toward it. Go ahead.
And to add to that too, what I would say is I am somebody that's striving to find a solution, and I have strove.
I strove.
Yeah, is that the word I'm looking for?
I strive.
I have striven. Maybe that's the word. I have strived. I've striven. Boy, where's our English majors? I have striven in the past to find solutions. I don't know if that's the right word, but I've looked for solutions in the past, and I've been successful in finding them in these other situations.
There
right?
You go.
So, it doesn't have to be exactly about this, but I mean, so then now we're connecting. Man, I have looked for solutions in the past. I had to figure out how to hang a picture on the wall, and how to find a stud. And I figured out that if I get a stud finder and I put it up there and I find it, and I can find out right where to put that nail, and I can nail that in, and I figured that out. Has nothing to do with weight loss, but it does have everything to do with finding solutions. Mm-hmm. So in my weight loss quest, I have looked for solutions in the past and found them in other situations. I'm smart enough and capable enough to do that. I know that about myself. Therefore, I'm smart enough and capable enough to find a solution for my weight loss as well, right? And I think that that's another way to go about it. And so we're, again, trying to change that belief system in going at it in that direction, other than I just can't lose weight. So therefore, ergo, it doesn't matter what actions I take. Therefore, I might as well eat whatever I want, not exercise, and unfortunately, I don't want to say these words, but, put on some weight, which has led America to be 70, I think conservatively, the conservative number here is 72% of Americans are obese or overweight, with 40% being obese and the other 32% being overweight. Some statistics have that closer to 75%. So again, just in that weight loss area, if we can't believe that we can lose weight, look for other, I've been successful in other areas in this way, and therefore I can be successful in finding a solution for this as well. So
yeah,
I thought that was a stimulating conversation. Any parting words of wisdom?
Yeah, I just wanted to give clarification to our audience. I know in this Epic 5 group, some of you guys have very familiar with Epic, some of you guys are new here. I do just want to say that we've shared the example about like weight loss a lot recently. That's not to say that detox should be for losing weight. For a lot of people, it can be. But we simply use that as an example because it's just very common and just served our purposes today in the discussion. But just want to clarify, a detox really should be more about just healthy, constructive dietary lifestyle where your body feels good, your energy feels good, you feel you're thriving. And for some people, that also happens to equal weight loss. For some, it might mean you gain some weight and have a more robust body. But just think about how your body is feeling and your energy, and if you feel you're thriving. So just wanted to throw that out there as a quick
Yeah,
disclaimer. But
that's a really good point, and really, uh, Rachel and I have toyed with calling this the no detox, right? Only because, so many quote detoxes are about calorie restriction or
right.
different types of like detox shakes or pills, powders, potions, whatever it happens to be. Whereas this is really just about feeding your feeding and nourishing your body.
Hmm.
We don't even have calories. No one's ever really brought this up, but we don't have keep it to X number of calories a day, have this many servings of this and that. And we sort of hint at maybe some ideas of that, but everybody's body's a little bit different. And I think that if we start listening to our bodies and feeling our bodies and listening to our system, we're going to have a far better outcome. And again, change that belief system as to why we're doing it. If we're doing a detox, quote unquote, for weight loss, well, when we lose the weight, what are we going to do? We're going to go right back because we accomplished the goal.
Yep.
So what do? We go right back to our unhealthy habits. If we're doing a detox or a healthy eating strategy diet, because we want to be healthy, because of our big why that we came up with yesterday, then our belief system dictates that we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
If we believe that we can't do it, well, maybe we can do it for one more day. And then maybe we can do it for one more day. And then maybe we can do it for one more day. And we can just keep recycling through that belief system.
Hmm.
So listen, guys, I appreciated the conversation today. Dan, thank you so much. And if you guys would like to know, more about Epic, by all means, please feel free to reach out. We're very easily accessible. I think you guys have figured that out already. Our mission is to help make this world a happier and healthier place for all of us, and to, quite frankly, leave behind a happier and healthier world when at least I'm gone. That's been my goal since day one. So listen, I love you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow, same time, same channel. We will be uploading this video to YouTube as well. Probably cutting off the front 15 minutes where I was messing around a little bit. But listen, I love you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye
Take
bye.
care, everybody.
Bye bye.